2024 college football season was very interesting for the group of five. Boise State had a magical run to the college football playoff, and now with the season wrapping up, the group of five is officially done for the season. We take a look at a way too early top 25 for the 2025 season. This is a season that'll be very interesting. There's lots of turnover with the transfer portal, but there are still some familiar names at the top. Plain and simple, Boise State is the top team to me. I think that obviously there is still plenty to change, and that's why this is a way too early top 25, but Boise State has the talent to be extremely good in 2025 as well. Madison is going to take another step to me in his development. Even though you lose Ashton Genty, that is going to be a tough player to replace, but Boise State, make no mistake about it, is still a very good team, a team that is poised to win the Mountain West once again, and a team that is looking to get back to the college football playoff. You know that they're going to have a goal of winning a game in the college football playoff. It's just a matter of getting there. We'll see what they figure out for the running back situation. We'll see if Madsen can be a better quarterback than what we saw this year, and this year was a pretty good version of himself, but he's still a young guy who can take some steps. The defense is going to have some nice players. They're losing some talent. Ahmad Hassanin is gone, and I think that this is going to be a really fun group to watch still. And again, like I said, lots is going to change. There's still probably some players that will leave, but this is still a very talented team that is going to do some really exciting things in 2025. Next up, I have the James Madison Dukes, and this was a very fun team to watch in 2024. The North Carolina game is one that everybody circles, and this is a team that has the tools to be really dangerous. Bob Chesney is going to be a really good coach. I think at the FBS level, did really good things at Holy Cross, and now he's doing some good things with the Dukes. Getting his quarterback in Alonzo Barnett back is going to be huge for this team. He is a really fun player, an electric player with the football in his hands. He also has one of the more underrated running backs returning next year in George Pettaway, the former North Carolina running back. They have a ton of talent coming back, some really exciting guys, some all-conference talent, and they lose some players to the transfer portal. Losing Eric O'Neal, I'm sure, definitely hurt that program. They obviously wish that they had him back, but they have a number of players coming back that will make a big-time impact, and this is going to be a really fun team to watch once again in the next season. Navy was a surprise team in 2024, and a lot of that had to do with the emergence of Blake Horvath. When you look at what Navy's had success in the past, it's the quarterback position that has thrived, and this year, that's exactly what happened, and it's a big reason why I'm so bullish on this team heading into 2025. Blake Horvath is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Most people probably don't know his name simply because he plays for Army, but this is a very good player who knows what this offense needs. He understands how to run this system, the reads he needs to make, and he's a very good player that's going to make some explosive plays once again. His roommate and Alex Teza is going to be back. That's an exciting tandem for anybody that knows the triple option and how that works. Eli Heidenreich is going to be back as well, so there's plenty of talent coming back. Some departures that will hurt more on the defensive side of the ball. They'll need to figure some things out, but you have Luke Pierce, Landon Robinson coming back on that side of the ball, so there's still plenty of talent coming back. It's just you might see some different stars than you did this year, but Blake Horvath is going to be the guy that you need to pay attention to for this team. Toledo's had his fair share of ups and downs in the 2024 season and really just under Jason Candle in general. But I think this is a team that's very exciting heading into 2025. Yes, you lose certain players. Jerwan Newton's going to be gone. Jacquez Stewart, Darius Alexander. They lose a ton of talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they still have some guys that are coming back that will make a big-time impact. I think that getting Junior Vanderos back is going to be huge for them as well. Again, a lot of this is subject to change. So even in the next month, maybe some of these players aren't coming back. But as of what I'm recording right now, these guys are going to make an impact in 2025. I think a big addition, one that's going to fly under the radar, was getting Chip Trayanum from Kentucky. This is a guy who is been back and forth on offense and defense. He was at Ohio State before Kentucky. He was at Arizona State before that. He has most experience at the running back position, and it's a talented position for Toledo. And I think that if this is a group that's looking to get back to the top of the MAC, they have Tucker Gleason coming back. They have the running back position figured out. And I think this is going to be a really fun team. there's going to be some movement in the MAC, and there's an opportunity for Toledo to get back on top, and I think they're going to do that. Dan Mullen taking over UNLV is very interesting. You'll expect an explosive offense, a group that it's going to be really fun to watch. There's just going to be some different players running the show. Anthony Calandria comes in from Virginia. That's a really exciting tandem to put him with Dan Mullen and see what he can do in that offense. I think you've seen a lot of exciting things at Virginia, and putting him in Dan Mullen's system at UNLV is going to be really fun. UNLV is the biggest challenger to Boise State in the Mountain West right now as I see it in 2025. Again, a lot is probably going to change up until that point, but that's really fun to see. Mullen's done a really good job of adding other talent in the transfer portal. Jalen Glover's coming in from Utah. JoJo Earl comes in from TCU. And I think when you're looking to replace certain guys like Ricky White, and even on the defensive side of the ball, Jackson Woodard is going to be a tough guy to replace. Losing Jalen Catalon was always going to hurt, but you always knew that was going to change with the coaching change. You knew as soon as Barry Odom left, there was going to be some turnover, and this is a team that's going to have a ton of turnover, but they have some really interesting players that are going to make them really fun and a contender in the Mountain West once again. Major Applewhite obviously had his struggles at Houston, but he has appeared to have found a really good situation at South Alabama, and even though he loses certain players, Fluff Bothwell departing is a big loss for them, but they still have plenty of talent coming back, specifically at the quarterback position. Everybody's going to be looking at Gio Lopez. I think you saw what he's capable of doing. He is a very electric player, someone who is a good fit in Major Applewhite's system, and he'll be a really fun player to watch. Kentrell Bullock is the guy that they may turn to if Fluff Bothwell is departing, so there's plenty of reason to be optimistic for this team. The defense has some players coming back. Blaine Myrick, Wesley Miller, those are two guys to keep an eye on. Again, there's going to be a lot more in-depth content coming as the offseason goes on. The preseason, we have plenty of previews coming up, but right now you have plenty of reason to be excited. It all really kind of is around Gio Lopez and what that offense can do, and if this team plays to what it's capable of playing, I think this is going to be a really fun team to watch in 2025. You knew when the 2024 season began that Memphis was going to have a lot of turnover after the season, and that is the case. You lose Seth Hennigan, Mario Anderson, Rock Taylor, Demir Blankenship, Chandler Martin. You lose a number of other players to the transfer portal, whether it's graduation, out of eligibility, NFL draft, you name it. But I think that Ryan Silverfield has done a really good job of bringing in talent to potentially replace those guys. There is still going to be plenty of excitement surrounding this program. There's also some questions. Is Brendan Lewis going to be the guy? We saw him show some exciting things at Nevada, and I think that we were expecting that from him coming from Colorado. Now he's at Memphis. How does he do in that system? How does he do replacing Seth Hennigan? Hennigan was one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in Memphis history, and it's going to be tough to fill his shoes. You also bring a linebacker from Nevada in Drew Watts, one of the more underrated linebackers, to fill Chandler Martin's shoes. Chandler Martin was an absolute game wrecker. He is a game changer, and he's going to be missed a lot. So getting a guy like Drew Watts is a nice way to fill his shoes as well. There's plenty of excitement surrounding the offense. There's plenty of still explosive players returning to this offense. It'll be really fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see how they fill some of those replacements on the defensive side of the ball. Again, Ryan Silverfield is doing a really good job. Competing in the AC is going to be tough, but I think he has a handful of players that are going to be extremely exciting to watch, and it'll be really fun to see how this all shakes out when you have all these new faces. Liberty had a tough year. I think that everybody was expecting them to win Conference USA, and it's obvious to see why. You had plenty of returning talent, but it just didn't play out. Injuries obviously played a huge role in that, and that's really unfortunate, but I think that Jamie Chadwell is going to do a great job of reloading this team and getting them back to where they need to be. You bring in Ethan Vasco from Coastal Carolina. That was a very interesting departure and a nice addition for the Liberty Flames. Ryan Berger is coming back, although the bowl game wasn't his greatest performance. Von Blue is going to be maybe the go-to guy. Quentin Cooley's gone. Caden Salter is off to Colorado. You have a number of players that you are going to have to replace on the offensive side of the ball, but you assume that the defense should be just fine. TJ Bush Jr. is one of the best defenders in college football that you're probably not talking about. CJ Bazile is going to be another guy as well. The defense has a number of really good players that are kind of underrated. They definitely fly under the radar, and this is a team that is going to look to bounce back. Still had a decent year, but they are looking to bounce back in a big way, and it would be fun to see how they do that. Louisiana was kind of a surprise team in 2024. This is a team that I don't think a lot of people expected to compete for a Sun Belt championship, and they exceeded expectations. They lose Ben Wooldridge. That's going to be a tough guy to replace, but you bring in Walker Howard from Ole Miss, the former LSU transfer from Ole Miss, ends up at Louisiana, and that'll be fun to see if he can take over this job. He's a guy with a ton of talent. There's a reason why LSU wanted him coming out of high school. There's a reason why Ole Miss took him out of the transfer portal. This is a guy that still has plenty of talent and is looking to just get an opportunity to show what he can do. And it's going to be fun to see what he's capable of doing in this offense. Zylan Perry is going to be the go-to running back as of right now, so we'll see how that plays out. They lost a couple of pass-catching players. You lose Harvey Broussard. Terrence Carter is off to the transfer portal. You do bring back Jacob Bernard, though, so that is going to be a fun group to watch offensively. There's some new faces. The defense, though it does lose a number of key pieces. Jordan Lawson, an absolute stud for this team, a really fun player to watch, and Tyree Skipper on the back end. Those are two guys that are going to help this Louisiana team get back to where they want to be at the top of the Sun Belt. A Jeff Monken-led team is going to be in a top 25, and I think that they kind of had something similar to Navy. The big question, though, is what are you going to do at quarterback? What does the quarterback position look like? This offense is so important to have a good quarterback. They have, you also lost Kanye Udo to the transfer portal. He's headed to Arizona State. So some of this is going to be new faces running the show. The offensive line has a number of talented players returning, though, and you have Noah Short coming back. He's electric both as a runner and a pass catcher, so they have plenty of talent returning. They also have really good talent on a defense that was one of the best in college football. There's plenty of players to keep an eye on there. This is a team that is still very much in contention. If they figure out the quarterback position, they're going to be dangerous. Then they're going to be back near the top of the AAC. ECU is such an interesting team because, you fire a head coach in Mike Houston earlier in the year, and then they essentially kind of went on a run. And the record they finished with was very surprising. With how they started the year, you kind of expected them to, I don't want to say tank in a way, but a team that finished 8-5 after, they fired their head coach, not exactly what you thought ECU's team would, or season, I should say, would have ended up. Now, they do have to replace a number of players thanks to the NFL draft, eligibility, the transfer portal. Rajay Harris, Chase Sowell, and Winston Wright are probably the three biggest names that you're trying to replace. Caden Hauser really coming on and being the go-to quarterback for this team is a huge development that we saw late in the year. Lennon Montgomery's back, Yannick Smith. There's plenty of reasons to be excited about this team, even with the new coaching staff. Getting Jaquiz Pettaway from Oklahoma, I don't think a lot of people expected that. That's another big name that we expected big things in 2024. For various reasons didn't play out, but that's a guy who has a ton of talent and is a really good addition to ECU. So maybe they're a little bit high here, but this is a team that was playing really well towards the end of the season and a team that could surprise people in 2025. San Jose State's biggest problem is they're going to have to figure out who's going to be the next Nick Nash. And honestly, they probably don't have another Nick Nash on their roster. I don't know if you can necessarily replace him. I don't think they're going to try to replace him with one guy. I think having Ken Niumatalolo running this program is a good thing because he understands the importance of a good unit. He doesn't need necessarily one player to do it all, though it was nice to have Nick Nash. You also had Justin Lockhart, so that was a nice 1-2 punch. This year it's going to be a different look. You have Walker Eget solidifying himself as the starter with Emmett Brown going in the transfer portal, so he's going to be the guy. But Chalk is going to be a really interesting player to watch running the football. Trayshawn Hurry is a guy to keep an eye on as a pass catcher. Again, replacing Nick Nash isn't going to be easy. That's going to be difficult for sure. The secondary took some major hits. You lost 3 players to the transfer portal. They've already found, 2 of them have already found new homes. But you do bring back Isaiah Rivas. Jordan Pollard could be a really interesting player to watch at the linebacker position. I really trust what Ken Niumatalolo is doing, and this is a team that shouldn't take a step back despite some of the big names that they lose. Georgia Southern is a really interesting team to watch in the Sun Belt. This is a team that could be flying under the radar for a lot of people. I don't know if there's many people that really know about Georgia Southern. They bring back J.C. French at quarterback. That's his job now, and he is going to be the guy that they rely on to make big plays. O.J. Arnold finally gets a chance to be the featured back with Jalen White gone, and you also get to see a guy like Josh Dallas potentially take over for a guy like Derwin Burgess, a very good player for Georgia Southern. The defense is going to go through a little bit of turnover, especially up front. You lose Isaac Walker, Marquez Watson Trent. You have some really good players on the back end. But again, this is going to be an interesting turnover. The defense lost some veteran players. So if that defense can figure some things out and they can get their players sorted out, who's going to be their new starters, the offense figures like it's going to be in a good spot. They're going to continue with doing what they did in 2024. And if the defense can step up, then this is a group that's going to be fun to watch in the Sun Belt next year. Tulane comes in probably lower than a lot of people expected, but I also think that you lost some big-time talent. And right now, especially with way too early top 25s, I want people to understand that it's okay to have your top 25 at the beginning of the season very different than a way too early look. Again, it's a way too early look. You don't even have all the pieces necessarily because so much is going to change. Tulane has already seen a number of players change. You saw Darian Mensah and Micah Hughes. Those are two of your biggest playmakers in the offense are gone. That is not going to be easy to replace. Yes, you bring in TJ Finley. Yes, you brought in Caden Simonza. You bring in two quarterbacks to take over for those two. There's no guarantee that that's going to happen. There's no guarantee that's going to be successful. That being said, John Summerall, if there's a guy who you're going to trust to keep this team going, it's him. Now, there's definitely a lot of work to do. There's a ton of turnover. The offense lost a number of players. You had Mario Williams that lose. The defense loses a ton of talent. Patrick Jenkins is gone. Caleb Ransaw is gone. You look at Tyler Grubbs. You lost a number of players that are big time players for you. You're not just going to replace that right away. It might take some time. And again, as spring practice goes on, as the offseason goes, we'll see what this team looks like. But this is a team that is still very much a contender in the AAC. They just have some things to sort out. It's going to be a fun team. John Summerall knows what he's doing. It's just going to be some different phases, maybe making an impact. They brought in a number of players from the transfer portal, and I expect some of those players to be big-time impact players, but it's going to take some time for everybody to gel together. Fresno State has gone through quite the interesting year. You know, you lose your head coach before the season even begins. The interim takes you through a pretty successful season, though there are obviously some ups and downs. There's a number of things going on for Fresno State that obviously made things a little bit difficult, but this year in 2025 is going to be a really exciting year. Matt Entz takes over, and he takes over a program that has some really underrated talent. I think that this defense is going to be really fun to watch. He also got a number of players to come back from the transfer portal. You know, you get Azilian Hamilton to come back. You got Elijah Gilliam, who's going to be the featured back with Malik Sherrod departing to Boise State. You have a number of players that left, but you also have some exciting players coming back. We'll see what the quarterback position looks like. Mikey Keene's off to Michigan. Maybe Joshua Wood is that guy. You bring in a quarterback from the transfer portal potentially that could take over. We'll see. Corey Foreman, as far as I know, is coming back. That is a huge return for them. That is a guy who is going to be a big-time player. He's going to command a lot of attention, and that helps the guys around him. Again, you're losing a lot of talent, especially on the defense side of the ball. You were already going to lose Cam Lockridge at corner, so getting Hamilton back was huge. You also have Jaden Davis coming back at safety, so this is a group that should be just fine. It's going to be an interesting turnover. Matt Entz is a proven winner from his time at NDSU, and if you can get that culture into Fresno State, this is a very dangerous team. Colorado State had a rocky start to their season, but they definitely fought back, and they bounced back in a good way. They definitely didn't have the season that maybe they projected, but it's still a team that it'll be fun to watch how they respond to this past year in 2025. Jay Norvell has done a really good job of coaching this team up and getting this team back to being a contender in the Mountain West. They were close to competing for a Mountain West championship, and they just fell slightly short. And I think that they did a really good job of kind of moving on from the disappointment that was the beginning of the year, and now they're looking to get to the top of the conference this next season. Braden Fowler Nicolosi, his development is going to be a big determining factor of how successful this team is in 2025. He does lose guys like Torrey Horton, Caleb Goody. You lose a number of talented pass catchers, but this is still a group that has some guys coming back that could be big-time guys. Justin Marshall is going to be the running back that they look to take over the large share of the carries. Armani Winfield is a guy who could be the next go-to wide receiver. Again, they lose a ton of talent at the pass-catching positions. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I think that Fowler Nicolosi's development, like I said, his ability to build chemistry with some of those new guys and some of these new wide receivers is going to be huge. But this is a team that people kind of forget. This was a team that was competing for a Mountain West championship late in the season. They were right there with the Boise States and the UNLV. Obviously, there's some steps they need to take. The defensive side of the ball is going to be one of them. They lose a lot of veterans on that side of the ball, but this is a team to definitely still pay attention to in 2025. North Texas is a fun team. I think they exceeded expectations in 2024, and I expect them to be right there with a lot of these contenders in the AAC in 2025. Bringing in Reese Poffenberger is a very underrated addition. Yes, things didn't work out in Miami. You know, he came from Albany, and then Miami gets Cam Ward, and we all know how that played out. I think that he's going to be a really fun fit in this system. He's a guy who is a gunslinger, who knows what to do with the football in his hands. He's going to obviously have to find a go-to player. You know, when they lost Chandler Morris, they needed a quarterback. He fills that role. They also lost tight end Oscar Hammond. They lose DT Sheffield. There's so many things you can do, but there's going to be a new leading pass catcher for this team, and I think that Poffenberger is a great addition for an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot, and it'll be a really fun group to watch. The defense returns quite a bit of promising talent. You lose certain players certain veterans that you knew were headed out the door, but Chavez Brown is back. Ethan Westlowski, those are two linebackers that are going to fly under the radar. Evan Jackson's a really interesting player at safety. So these are guys that are going to play big roles, and this is a North Texas team that could be a sleeper team in 2025. Jeff Traylor definitely has work to do at UTSA, and he'll have work to do in 2025, but this is a group that's really fun. I think that they're a young and developing group. Owen McCown is obviously the big name that we're all going to pay attention to. He's going to be under the spotlight, and this is going to be a different offense. I think we've had certain names that you've come to expect things from over the past few years, and now you have a new offense. Covorian Barnes is gone. Oscar Cardenas, the wide receivers that you once had, those guys are all gone. Certain linebackers are going to be missed. Jamari Robinson, Martavis French. I think there's plenty of talent, though, that makes this team really interesting. We talked about McCown, Brandon Hyde Jr., Willie McCoy. On the defensive side of the ball, getting Shad Banks, a guy that TCU was very high on. He is someone to keep an eye on to replace one of those linebacker positions. He's a very good player that it has a potential to be a really good addition from the transfer portal, a guy who has all-conference type talent. And I think that Jeff Traylor, again, has done a really good job. There's definitely work to do, but this is a team that can definitely develop on what they had last year and can build this into a more successful team. Northern Illinois fell under the radar for most of the season, even after the Notre Dame win. Winning on the road against Notre Dame still doesn't make any sense. This is a team that does not belong with a Notre Dame team, and they found a way to win, and you have to give Thomas Hammock the benefit of the doubt at this point. You have to give him credit for what he has done. This team was just phenomenal, and their defense played a huge role in that. This was one of the better defenses in college football, and they return a number of players that are going to continue that tradition. They lost a ton of players, and they lost a handful of players on defense to the transfer portal and the NFL draft, but they returned some really promising talent. Jelani Williams, Roy Williams, Jacob Finley. Those are guys who are going to keep that tradition going. They're going to keep that level of play up, and it's just going to come down to what the offense can do. You lose certain players. You lost Trayvon Rudolph, Gavin Williams, Ethan Hampton departs. You have someone like John Holst who could take over at the quarterback position. Telly Johnson Jr. is a promising young player who could really step up for this team. So Northern Illinois feels like they're in good hands. They just obviously have certain things to sort out, certain players that need to step up, and someone needs to replace some of these star players. But they have a good core that's going to be ready to make a run. Another team that's looking to make a run in 2025 is the Arkansas State Red Wolves. This is a team led by Butch Jones that has a lot of promise heading into this season, and they have certain players obviously they need to replace and certain players that need to step up, but they have a lot of exciting talent coming back this year. Jalen Rayner is one of the best underrated players that you're not talking about enough. He is a very talented player who does a lot of exciting things for this program. Jacquez Cross is coming back. Corey Rucker, a guy who has seemingly been in college forever, he is back, a guy who's proven to do a lot of exciting things for Arkansas State. The defense has some things that need to sort out, but this is a group that, again, is flying under the radar. And some of these teams that fly under the radar, that's exactly where they want to be. That's a position where they thrive the most, and that's how they're going to make a run. Texas State is another one of those teams that has a lot to sort out. G.J. Kinney has plenty on his plate. He has to figure out who his quarterback is going to be with Jordan McLeod heading out the door, and it's going to be difficult. There are going to be some challenges, but there's definitely still plenty of exciting talent coming back. Torrance Burgess Jr. is going to hold things up at the running back position despite the fact that they lose Ismail Mahdi to Arizona. Cole Wilson and Chris Don Jr. are going to be at wide receiver, so you lose Joey Hobart, but you still have plenty of talent coming back. The defense up front should be set. Khalil Alexander, Jalason Landry are going to lead the way there. You also bring in Kennard Snyder from Iowa State, and I think that you're feeling like you have certain positions. The quarterback position is obviously going to be a big one. The offensive line lost some key players, but you have some key players coming back on that position as well. So there's definitely reasons to be excited. There's just also some big shoes to fill. Filling Mahdi, Hobart's, and McLeod's shoes is not going to be easy. It's going to be a by committee approach, but I think that they have the talent to do it. The quarterback position, though, is probably what concerns me the most. If Jordan McLeod were returning, this is a top 10 group of 5 team. But as of right now, until they figure out the quarterback position, I think there's still going to be some questions. But this is a team that is going to fly under the radar until they do. The Buffalo Bulls definitely turned some heads in 2024. They had some interesting performances. I think the consistency maybe wasn't there as much as they'd like, but this is a team that could be really fun. Obviously, Pete Lembo has done a really good job of getting this program back to being a solid program, and now they're looking to take the next step this year. You lose your quarterback, but Aljay Henderson is a really good running back for this team, a guy who's going to be an all-MAC type player. The offensive line has certain players they need to replace, but Trevor Brock coming back is huge for them as well. The linebacker position appears set. Deion Crawford and Red Murdoch are back. Even when you lose Sean Dolak, that's an absolute stud that you're losing. That's going to be tough, but you have enough players coming back that could make things really interesting for this team in terms of how far they can go. Can they make a run in the MAC? Can they make a run to that MAC championship? It's been a while since we've seen this Buffalo team at the top, but this team feels like they have the ability to do that. Now, there are certain teams that were really good in 2024 that maybe aren't going to be included in 2025 way too early. A team like Miami of Ohio is probably could be put in these next 3 spots. Honestly, these next 3 spots, I had about 10 teams that could be here. Miami, Ohio, Jacksonville State is another one of those teams. I think that this is a team that is going to have an identity change. They're going to go through a transition. Losing Rich Rodriguez is going to be tough. But you bring in certain players from the transfer portal that could help. Gavin Wimsatt is going to be a good addition, I think, to replace Tyler Huff. I think this offense has a lot to figure out, so that's why they're lower here. And maybe, again, you could make an argument that other teams are here. But Juwan Campbell on the defensive side of the ball, Daryl Prater, Dewan DeLoach, you have plenty of talent coming back. It's just a matter of, can you sort things out? The new coaching staff is coming in. How do they handle things? How does this roster gel with this coaching staff? And if they're good to go, they feel like they're in a really good position. But at the same time, there's definitely a lot to sort out before the season begins. A coach that isn't getting enough recognition in college football in general is Ricky Ronnie. Now, I can see why he's not. When you look at the success, or really the lack of success that Old Dominion's had at times, it's easy to see why. But you also need to understand, this is a team that gets purged by the transfer portal every single year. And the fact that they push for a bowl game year in and year out says a lot about what Ricky Ronnie is doing. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to turn over a roster and get certain players to step up in a big way, to the point where people, Power 4 programs, want to take them. You have to get that player to that level, and Ricky Ronnie's staff has done an incredible job of developing their players, getting them into a position where they can succeed, and they're going to do that again in 2025. Colton Joseph is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I don't think a lot of people know who he is, and he's going to be a really fun dual threat for this team. The defense appears to be set too. Chris Trinidad could be a really good player. The linebacker position appears to be set, and even though the secondary has things to figure out, this defense could be really fun. And the final team, and this is a team that definitely has a lot to prove in 2025, is App State. And this is a team that I initially wasn't sure was going to make my top 25 because of the struggles they had in 2024. But they have done a really good job of replacing certain talent. They lose certain players to the transfer portal. You lose the fact they lose Joey Aguilar, Christian Horn, and Caden Robinson this offseason is definitely a group that's going to be missed quite a bit. But you did a good job if you're this coaching staff to bring in players to replace them. And the running back position is another one. Amani Marshall is coming back, though. You bring in A.J. Swan to fix the quarterback position. That's a really fun player to watch. I'm excited to see what he can do coming from LSU. And before that, he was at Vanderbilt. You bring in two running backs, Khalifa Keith and Rashad Dubinion. Those are two SEC running backs that are coming to App State. That's a good 1-2 punch if you're an App State fan. Dalton Stroman is a really under-the-radar type player, a guy who can have a 1,000-yard season. He is explosive. He's a guy who can take the top off a defense. And now with those two aforementioned wide receivers gone, you get a chance to show what he can do, and that could lead to really good things. The offensive line is going to have to replace certain players, but you do get Markel Samuel back. That's a nice return for them. The secondary also saw Jordan Favors go into the transfer portal, but then withdrew his name. That's huge, especially with the front seven going through some transition. So that'll be a really interesting team to watch. Again, plenty of other teams that could have been in these final few spots. App State's a team that is looking to get back to the top of the group of five. They have certain players from SEC teams that could make that happen. So we'll see what that group can do in 2025. But it's going to be a really fun group of players to watch, a really fun team. And the Sun Belt, once again, could be wildly entertaining.